Welcome to Sleepy Stories. Tonight opens with quiet curiosity and a simple promise. This space is for learning that moves at the speed of calm. If sleep arrives before the story reaches its closing, that is perfectly fine. Your mind can cradle meaning while the body rests. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, a like and a subscribe help this small constellation of stories continue to shine. Every story of light begins with wonder. Long before laboratories and polished metal, a question grew wherever night skies were clear. What is the fire that does not burn out? What is the glow that needs no fuel pile, no smokestack, no chimney? Above forests and seas, above cities and deserts, the stars kept answering without a sound. Their answer was not a word. It was a process, patient and ancient, in which the smallest particles embraced and released warmth greater than any furnace. That quiet embrace is fusion. Fusion is the art of union. In the deep heart of a star, pressure brings hydrogen close enough for the boundaries between them to soften. When closeness becomes one, energy steps into the world as light. Nothing is torn apart. Nothing is shattered. Power arrives through joining, not through breaking. The radiance that spills across dawn, the warmth that coaxes life from soil and sea, comes from that simple and difficult closeness. Humanity decided to learn this language, to shape it with care, and to invite it into safe homes without smoke and without fear. The path to such learning did not begin with the machine that will guide this night. It began with the patience to see that some fires do not want walls. A flame will cling to a wick or a log. Plasma will not. It is a living river of charged particles, quick as lightning and hot beyond imagination. No solid shell can endure it. Yet there is another kind of boundary, one that leaves no scar on matter. A boundary drawn by fields that curve through empty space and hold a storm the way music holds breath. Magnetism becomes the architecture. From that insight rose a design both elegant and strange. Instead of a single circle, instead of a simple ring, coils would twist through space with deliberate grace. Each curve would correct what the last one allowed to wander. Each turn would steady what the last one set in motion. The result would not be a cage, but a path. Not a prison, but a choreography. Along this path, plasma could whirl without touching any wall, guided by lines that could not be seen and yet could be traced with perfect mathematics. That design is the Stellarator. Imagine a hall where instruments do not play sound, yet harmony fills the air. The magnets rest in layered arcs, each with a shape so specific that no other shape can take its place. Their arrangement looks almost organic, like shells built by the sea or spirals found in living things. Nothing is wasted. Every bend exists because motion needs it. This is engineering that behaves like a poem. It is also a promise that complexity can serve serenity when it is shaped by understanding. The purpose behind all of this is tender as well as practical. The world needs warmth that does not wound the sky. It needs light that does not leave behind a long shadow. Water holds the fuel. Knowledge holds the method. Geometry holds the peace. If a star can be invited to rest inside a chamber without harm, then cities can glow, hospitals can breathe, and quiet homes can hum through the night with energy that renews itself. This is not the dream of endless taking. It is the craft of endless giving. Settle into that thought the way a shoreline settles into evening. A machine can be many things. It can be noise and force. It can also be care, patience, and the trace of human hands that learned to listen before they tried to lead. The Stellarator is such a machine. It twists light into endurance. It turns the rush of plasma into a calm, sustained motion. It is the point where curiosity and stewardship meet and decide to walk together. The night is wide. The steps ahead will follow light from the heart of stars into the quiet heart of a chamber where metal curves like riverbanks and fields flow like water. The journey is gentle. The aim is simple. Hold a piece of the cosmos without breaking it, and let that held brightness show a softer future. Above every landscape and ocean stretches a vault of quiet brilliance. The stars that scatter across it are not cold jewels, but furnaces vast beyond comprehension, each one a constant conversation between gravity and pressure. In their centers, Hydrogen is drawn inward with such intensity that the atoms can no longer remain separate. They merge, forming helium, and from that union bursts the very essence of radiance. Light, heat, and life spill outward, traveling across the darkness until they touch worlds like ours. Every sunrise is therefore a memory of fusion, a distant echo of creation replayed through the air. To know the star is to know balance. Gravity forever pulls inward, insisting on collapse, while the energy of fusion forever pushes outward, insisting on release. Between those two desires lies stability, a truce written in fire. For billions of years, this equilibrium has held the cosmos together. Without it, every star would vanish into shadow, and every planet would freeze. The same law that steadies galaxies also glows in a candle's flame. Energy does not exist in defiance of order, but in partnership with it. That realization would one day guide the hands that built the Stellarator. Scientists who study stellar fusion do not see chaos when they look into the heart of a star. They see structure hidden within motion, the subtle choreography that lets destruction become endurance. The temperature there exceeds any concept of flame. Matter breaks into plasma, a state where atoms surrender their electrons and flow like liquid lightning. In that brilliance, magnetic lines arise naturally, curving through the solar core, shaping motion just as rivers carve their own beds. The universe has been writing the rules of confinement since its beginning. Humanity merely had to learn to read them. Long before magnetic fields were shaped by human tools, the ancestors of modern stars lived and died, scattering their fused elements into the void. Iron, carbon, and oxygen, the materials of blood and stone, were born from their deaths. The same process that now lights the heavens also built the matter that listens and learns. When scientists attempt to recreate fusion on Earth, they are not inventing but remembering, retracing a pattern older than time itself. They are guided by the quiet idea that if nature can sustain such balance at cosmic scales, perhaps humans can mirror it in miniature. Every discovery begins as a question. What would happen if we could bring together two atoms and keep them joined? Could we harvest the warmth that binds the universe? The challenge lies not in starting fusion but in sustaining it. Stars have gravity's endless hand. Earth must build its own form of containment. For decades, laboratories across the world tried to imitate the star's pressure through electric currents and magnetic loops. The dream was constant, to hold the fire steady long enough for its generosity to outweigh the energy it required. Each failure was a lantern on the path toward mastery. To stand before a fusion experiment is to feel time stretch. The chamber glows for an instant, then fades. Instruments hum, screens flicker, and within that brief pulse of light lies the power of a Sunday. Every attempt lasts only seconds, yet those seconds are enough to remind researchers why they persist. Fusion is the purest energy known, clean, abundant, without smoke or waste. It is the opposite of greed. It gives more than it takes. It promises a civilization that can live in harmony with its own hunger for progress. From this longing grew the need for a design that could cradle such intensity with grace. Straight lines failed, rigid boundaries broke. The answer would come from curves, from the same geometry that shapes galaxies and seashells. The fire within the stars would one day be tamed not by force, but by form. The Stellarator's coils would twist like cosmic spirals, borrowing their rhythm from nature itself. Through those twists, energy would find peace in motion, and motion would find purpose in stillness. Thus the path to fusion's quiet mastery began, with the simple realization that the universe's greatest power was also its gentlest teacher. Since the first sparks flickered from flint and stone, humanity has lived in pursuit of a steadier flame. Each discovery built upon the last. The warmth of wood gave way to the strength of coal, the pressure of steam to the hum of electricity, and the splitting of atoms to the blinding power of fission. Yet every step forward came with a shadow. Smoke-dimmed skies, waste-filled rivers, and the heat of progress scorched the balance that had once sustained the earth. The search for energy became a mirror reflecting both brilliance and consequence. Somewhere beyond those reflections, a quieter answer waited. The idea of infinite energy has always been less about greed and more about relief, freedom from scarcity, from pollution, from the fear that the light could someday go out. Scientists imagined a power that renewed itself the way sunlight renews the morning. They looked to the stars, realizing that their endless glow came not from consumption but from continuity. Fusion did not devour its fuel violently. It transformed it gently, binding particles together in cooperation rather than conflict. If that process could be recreated on Earth, the story of civilization could shift from extraction to harmony. Early attempts were daring acts of faith wrapped in steel. In laboratories from Princeton to Moscow, great coils of wire and copper rings surrounded sealed chambers. Inside, small amounts of hydrogen were heated by electric pulses until the atoms danced free from their electrons and became plasma. For moments, sometimes seconds, sometimes less, the swirling light approached the conditions of a star. Then the magnetic fields wavered, and the light vanished. The dream burned bright but brief, leaving behind both failure and fascination. Each short-lived flash whispered that the goal was not impossible, only incomplete. Through these trials, one truth became clear: energy without end would never be found through force. The plasma could not be crushed or locked in rigid walls. It needed a space that moved with it, a boundary that yielded as much as it guided. Nature itself offered the lesson. Rivers remain within their banks not because they are trapped, but because the shape of the land allows them to flow. Wind fills sails because cloth gives it form without resistance. The same principle would someday shape the Stellarator: containment through understanding rather than confinement through strength. The decades that followed were marked by patience rather than spectacle. Whole generations of researchers devoted their lives to studying the patterns of magnetism, refining equations, and designing machines that might finally coax stability from chaos. Their laboratories were not temples of instant success, but gardens of persistence. They planted ideas whose fruits they might never taste. Yet in the language of science, patience is a form of faith. The fusion community believed that beneath every failed experiment lay a law waiting to be learned. The laws of nature, once honored, would reward them with light that never fades. While the world raced toward oil and fission, the quiet pursuit of fusion continued in the background, a slow heartbeat beneath the noise of industry. Those who followed it understood that true progress is not measured in speed but in endurance. To build a star on Earth required not only machines but philosophy. It demanded humility before complexity and reverence for the invisible forces that govern matter. In that humility, a transformation occurred. Energy ceased to be a commodity and became a relationship, a dialogue between human intention and cosmic design. By the closing years of the 20th century, the dream had taken shape in countless prototypes, each a reflection of the same unending question: how to let power exist peacefully. The answer lay waiting in curves and spirals, in the subtle geometries that mimic the very structure of galaxies. The Stellarator would embody this revelation, a machine born not from the will to dominate energy, but from the wish to collaborate with it. Its coils would twist and flow like thoughts finding clarity, each turn guiding plasma into harmony. The quest for infinite energy, then, is not a race toward boundless consumption, but a return to equilibrium. It is a reminder that the universe already knows how to sustain itself. Humanity need only learn to listen. The light we seek has never truly been elsewhere. It has always been here, patient, silent, waiting to be understood. To understand fusion is to look beyond machines and formulas and into the very pattern of creation itself. Every moment of light, every spark of warmth, begins with union. In the core of a star, hydrogen atoms drift closer until they share their essence, collapsing boundaries that once kept them apart. In that instant, matter surrenders its separateness and becomes energy, a transformation so complete that the laws of physics seem to pause in awe. It is not destruction that creates light, but connection, and within that truth lies one of nature's oldest lessons. When opposites meet in balance, the universe shines. Human technology often mirrors human nature, drawn first to the power of division before learning the grace of unity. Fission, the splitting of atoms, brought energy through rupture. It revealed both promise and peril, giving light to cities while casting long shadows of fear. Fusion, by contrast, offers the same magnitude of power, but through harmony. It does not tear, it joins. It releases energy by creating wholeness, not by undoing it. It is a quieter strength, one that mirrors the rhythm of life itself, cells joining, seasons cycling, tides rising and returning. Reproducing such a phenomenon on Earth requires faith in precision. The conditions inside a fusion reaction defy ordinary experience. Temperatures soar beyond 100 million degrees, a heat that no metal, no stone, no substance can contain. Pressure must compress atoms close enough to embrace without colliding violently. For a long time, the very idea seemed impossible. To capture the essence of a star without destroying the world around it sounded like the wish of dreamers, not engineers. Yet dreamers have always been the first to test what the world calls impossible. Scientists discovered that matter at such extreme temperatures transforms into plasma, a fourth state beyond solid, liquid, or gas. In this form, atoms shed their electrons and move freely, charged and restless. Plasma responds to magnetic fields as wind responds to mountains, bending and curling according to invisible contours. Here lay the first clue to containment. If magnetism could be shaped with precision, it could hold plasma the way a bowl holds water, without ever touching it. The challenge was no longer to resist heat, but to design harmony between motion and form. Early magnetic traps attempted this feat, yet most were simple circles, elegant but flawed. The plasma drifted, collided, and escaped, finding cracks in geometry like water finding leaks in stone. To make fusion possible, the fields themselves had to twist, curving through 3 dimensions so that each instability corrected itself before it could grow. The lines of magnetism had to weave together, looping in endless grace, ensuring that energy never lost its path. The problem was not brute strength but choreography, a dance precise enough to tame fire. From this understanding, the foundation of the Stellarator began to form. To engineers, fusion ceased to be merely a source of energy. It became a question of design philosophy. What if power could be born from symmetry instead of collision? What if technology could emulate nature not by imitating its surface, but by following its logic? The answer was a resounding affirmation. Every river, every spiral shell, every orbit of a planet shows that energy thrives in curves. Straight lines exhaust, spirals endure. In learning from that pattern, scientists began to see that fusion's true challenge was artistic as much as scientific. The beauty of the Stellarator would prove that art and physics share the same devotion to balance. As understanding deepened, so did humility. The closer humanity came to controlling fusion, the clearer it became that it was not control at all. It was partnership. The plasma, the magnets, the mathematics, all worked together as a single organism, neither ruled nor restrained, but harmonized. Fusion means cooperation written into the language of the universe. It reminds us that every particle, every motion, every burst of light is part of a dialogue between structure and freedom. When the first magnetic field formed perfectly around a swirl of plasma and held it still for longer than a heartbeat, silence filled the laboratory. Not the silence of emptiness, but of recognition, the quiet that follows when something ancient has been understood again. Humanity had not invented a new power. It had rediscovered an old truth. The cosmos gives freely to those who learn its rhythm. Fusion is that rhythm made visible, light born from unity, endless because it is shared. Every great discovery begins with a contradiction. Humanity sought to recreate the sun's gentle brilliance, yet doing so required summoning forces capable of destruction. To hold something hotter than a star's surface demanded an understanding deeper than strength. It required elegance. That paradox defined the challenge of fusion. The dream was simple: to ignite plasma and let it burn in perfect stillness. The difficulty was everything that followed. At the dawn of the fusion age, laboratories echoed with the hum of power supplies and the hiss of vacuum pumps. Inside sealed chambers, hydrogen waited to be awakened. The scientists who gathered around those machines did so with the reverence of astronomers watching an eclipse. They were attempting to create a star the size of a marble. The moment current flowed, the gas within transformed. It shimmered, glowed, and twisted like a captive aurora. Then, almost as quickly, the light vanished. The heat escaped, the plasma touched the walls, and the star went dark again. Those fleeting bursts of radiance became symbols of hope and humility. No material on Earth could withstand such temperatures. Every metal melted, every surface burned. The problem was not producing fusion but containing it. A reactor would need to hold energy that could turn solid matter into vapor without allowing it to escape. The answer could not be physical, it had to be magnetic. Invisible lines of force would form the walls of a cage that had no substance. These fields could shape plasma without touching it, guiding the movement of charged particles the way gravity guides planets around a Sunday. But creating such a perfect magnetic field was an art yet to be mastered. Early experiments tried to trap plasma inside circular magnetic loops. The shape seemed logical, simple, stable, symmetrical. Yet symmetry proved to be its weakness. Within the loops, small instabilities formed. They twisted, collided, and grew until the plasma tore itself apart. What had begun as balance dissolved into chaos. Researchers learned that perfect circles could not hold perfection. Energy needed room to wander. It required gentle correction, not rigid boundaries. The circle had to twist into a spiral, a geometry capable of turning turbulence into rhythm. The solution would come not from force, but from motion itself. To reach that solution, decades of patience were required. Equations filled notebooks, computers simulated invisible storms, and each result led only to another refinement. The scientists who stayed with the project learned to think like the plasma they studied, flexible, adaptive, resilient. Their persistence carried the dream across generations. Even as funding shifted and public attention drifted elsewhere, they continued. The goal was no longer just to power cities. It was to understand how nature maintains order within movement. The Stellarator would one day become the embodiment of that philosophy. A structure built not to fight the universe, but to join it. The challenge of fusion is more than technical. It is moral. It asks whether humanity can handle infinite power without arrogance. The same curiosity that split the atom had already changed the world in ways both wondrous and tragic. Fusion offered redemption, a chance to harness energy without consequence, to light the night without leaving scars. But such power could only belong to those who approached it with patience, precision, and care. Every coil of copper, every calculation, every moment of waiting carried a single intention: to prove that power can coexist with peace. When the first stable plasma finally held its shape for longer than a breath, a quiet certainty filled the room. It was not triumph, but recognition. The dream had never been about domination. It had been about belonging. To create a sun on Earth was to confirm that humanity, too, is part of the same design that governs the stars. The challenge had not ended, it had only deepened, drawing scientists toward the next revelation, the birth of a machine. Every great discovery begins with a contradiction. Humanity sought to recreate the sun's gentle brilliance, yet doing so required summoning forces capable of destruction. To hold something hotter than a star's surface demanded an understanding deeper than strength. It required elegance. That paradox defined the challenge of fusion. The dream was simple: to ignite plasma and let it burn in perfect stillness. The difficulty was everything that followed. At the dawn of the fusion age, laboratories echoed with the hum of power supplies and the hiss of vacuum pumps. Inside sealed chambers, hydrogen waited to be awakened. The scientists who gathered around those machines did so with the reverence of astronomers watching an eclipse. They were attempting to create a star the size of a marble. The moment current flowed, the gas within transformed. It shimmered, glowed, and twisted like a captive aurora. Then, almost as quickly, the light vanished. The heat escaped, the plasma touched the walls, and the star went dark again. Those fleeting bursts of radiance became symbols of hope and humility. No material on Earth could withstand such temperatures. Every metal melted, every surface burned. The problem was not producing fusion but containing it. A reactor would need to hold energy that could turn solid matter into vapor without allowing it to escape. The answer could not be physical. It had to be magnetic. Invisible lines of force would form the walls of a cage that had no substance. These fields could shape plasma without touching it, guiding the movement of charged particles the way gravity guides planets around a sunday. But creating such a perfect magnetic field was an art yet to be mastered. Early experiments tried to trap plasma inside circular magnetic loops. The shape seemed logical, simple, stable, symmetrical. Yet symmetry proved to be its weakness. Within the loops, small instabilities formed. They twisted, collided, and grew until the plasma tore itself apart. What had begun as balance dissolved into chaos. Researchers learned that perfect circles could not hold perfection. Energy needed room to wander. It required gentle correction, not rigid boundaries. The circle had to twist into a spiral, a geometry capable of turning turbulence into rhythm. The solution would come not from force, but from motion itself. To reach that solution, decades of patience were required. Equations filled notebooks, computers simulated invisible storms, and each result led only to another refinement. The scientists who stayed with the project learned to think like the plasma they studied, flexible, adaptive, resilient. Their persistence carried the dream across generations. Even as funding shifted and public attention drifted elsewhere, they continued. The goal was no longer just to power cities. It was to understand how nature maintains order within movement. The Stellarator would one day become the embodiment of that philosophy, a structure built not to fight the universe, but to join it. The challenge of fusion is more than technical, it is moral. It asks whether humanity can handle infinite power without arrogance. The same curiosity that split the atom had already changed the world in ways both wondrous and tragic. Fusion offered redemption, a chance to harness energy without consequence, to light the night without leaving scars. But such power could only belong to those who approached it with patience, precision, and care. Every coil of copper, every calculation, every moment of waiting carried a single intention: to prove that power can coexist with peace. When the first stable plasma finally held its shape for longer than a breath, a quiet certainty filled the room. It was not triumph, but recognition. The dream had never been about domination. It had been about belonging. To create a sun on Earth was to confirm that humanity, too, is part of the same design that governs the stars. The challenge had not ended. It had only deepened, drawing scientists toward the next revelation, the birth of a machine that would twist light into harmony, The idea that would one day take the shape of the Stellarator began not in fire, but in thought, a thought born during the middle of the last century, when the dream of fusion was young and fragile. In a quiet room at Princeton University, physicist Lyman Spitzer stared at equations that refused to obey his expectations. Others had already built early magnetic traps, elegant circles that promised control but delivered chaos. The plasma always slipped away, like mist through open fingers. But Spitzer saw something others had missed. The problem was not the plasma, it was the geometry that tried to contain it. Nature, he realized, did not build straight lines. Rivers curve, galaxies spin in spirals. Even the magnetic field of Earth twists as it flows through space. To confine something as alive and unpredictable as plasma, one would have to speak its language, the language of curvature, rhythm, and motion. That realization came not as a flash of genius, but as quiet inevitability. He imagined a machine whose magnetic fields would bend and twist like the forces they sought to control, guiding plasma through space without ever touching it. It was a design that mirrored the universe itself. Spitzer's sketches looked almost impossible. Loops of wire tangled into patterns that seemed more like art than engineering. His colleagues admired the ambition but doubted its practicality. Building such a device would require precision beyond the reach of the tools of his time. Yet he persisted. The first models were small, almost delicate, copper coils wrapped around glass chambers, glowing faintly when current passed through. These early stellarators did not yet achieve full fusion, but they demonstrated something more important: stability. The plasma remained longer, steadier, calmer. A door had opened. The name Stellarator, captured both its purpose and its poetry. A machine meant to imitate the stars. It was an act of humility as much as invention, a way of acknowledging that human progress comes from observation, not domination. Each refinement brought the design closer to perfection. The coils became more intricate, the vacuum chambers more exact, the mathematics more daring. Decades would pass before the concept could bloom into its full form, but the seed had taken root. What began as an impossible drawing had become a blueprint for balance. The Stellarator's evolution mirrored the growth of understanding itself. As computers became faster and materials stronger, scientists could shape magnetic fields with exquisite accuracy. The twisted geometry that once seemed chaotic revealed its harmony. Every loop, every turn served a purpose, correcting the plasma's motion, keeping it centered, guiding it as a shepherd guides wine through reeds. By bending the fields just so, they discovered that energy could move forever without escaping, that chaos could be taught to flow instead of fight. The beauty of the Stellarator lay not in its power, but in its patience. Through these years of slow construction and quiet testing, the project carried an almost monastic spirit. Engineers and physicists labored over details invisible to the untrained eye. A single misaligned coil could destroy the symmetry and unravel the magnetic dance within. Yet that fragility only deepened their devotion. To build the Stellarator was to practice precision as a form of faith, faith in mathematics, in nature, and in the idea that human ingenuity could coexist with cosmic order. When the first full-sized Stellarator finally came to life, the moment was not thunderous. There was no explosion, no blinding flash, only a hum, a glow, and a silence that felt infinite. Plasma floated within its magnetic labyrinth, twisting in harmony with the machine's design. For the first time, light followed the path humanity had drawn for it, and the line between imagination and reality dissolved. The dream of controlling a star had taken its first breath. The birth of the Stellarator was not the end of an experiment. It was the beginning of a relationship between human understanding and the universe's oldest rhythm. What once seemed unreachable had learned to stay, and what once roared in space now whispered quietly. When the Stellarator was first assembled, it seemed less like a machine and more like something discovered, as if it had always existed, waiting for human hands to understand its shape. Coils twisted and curved through space in forms that no straight line could capture. Every bend carried intention. Every intersection of metal and magnet spoke of invisible forces balanced against one another. From above, it resembled a spiral frozen in motion, an intricate sculpture of precision where mathematics became art. The purpose of this shape was neither aesthetic nor arbitrary. Plasma, once free and untamable, needed a path that allowed it to move without loss. A perfect circle had failed, but imperfection, it turned out, was the key to stability. The Stellarator's fields looped through 3 dimensions, correcting the plasma's natural drift at every turn. Where one line of force pulled outward, another curved gently inward, restoring balance. It was not confinement through rigidity, but through constant adjustment, a flowing equilibrium. The machine did not dominate energy, it danced with it. To design such motion required equations that stretched human comprehension. The engineers could not see the fields they created, but they could trace their patterns through simulation and intuition. Magnetic lines were calculated, tested, and redrawn, their intersections mapped like celestial orbits. When finally activated, the fields became reality, invisible rivers guiding plasma as predictably as gravity guides planets. Inside, the light followed its magnetic path endlessly, circling without friction, without escape. It was as though the universe had been convinced to trust human geometry. The coils themselves were feats of craftsmanship, each one unique, each carved to millimeter precision. They fit together like the ribs of a living organism. Thousands of components formed a continuous shell of symmetry and purpose. Superconducting cables, cooled to near absolute zero, carried currents strong enough to bend space around them. In their presence, invisible lines of magnetism twisted into the elegant spiral that defined the Stellarator's soul. To stand beside it was to feel a kind of reverence, the realization that complexity could serve serenity when guided by understanding. Even the imperfections became part of the design. Nothing in the universe is perfectly smooth or still, not light, not gravity, not thought. The Stellarator accepted that truth. It worked with the inevitable ripples rather than against them, creating harmony from slight asymmetry. Within that acceptance lay its genius. Where earlier machines demanded control, the Stellarator practiced guidance. It proved that stability is not the absence of movement, but the art of keeping motion balanced upon itself. When plasma filled the chamber, its luminous flow revealed the hidden architecture of the fields. Bands of light traced invisible spirals, curling like smoke caught in still air. Every rotation reaffirmed the precision of the geometry, each flicker a testament to the patience behind its design. Scientists watched the glow ripple across mirrored surfaces and saw not chaos, but continuity. The shape worked, the fire held. Within the machine's quiet heart, energy found its rhythm, powerful, self-contained, endlessly repeating. The geometry of the Stellarator teaches something larger than physics. It shows that beauty and function can be one and the same, that harmony is often born from complexity rather than simplicity. The same pattern found in galaxies, whirlpools, and DNA now resides in a man-made chamber, echoing the logic of the cosmos. It is a reminder that nature rewards those who observe before they act, who learn before they command. The Stellarator's curves are not inventions. They are acknowledgments, signatures of humility written in magnetic lines. In every twist and turn, the machine holds a quiet truth. Perfection is not stillness, but balance in motion. To keep light contained, one must allow it to move freely. To create peace, one must first understand the patterns of turbulence. And in that lesson lies not just the secret of fusion, but a reflection of existence itself. Order and chaos entwined, each sustaining the other in an endless, luminous embrace. In human hands. When current surges through the Stellarator's coils, the air trembles faintly, though no sound can be heard. It is not vibration that fills the chamber, but alignment, invisible threads of force weaving together to form order. Each coil begins its silent song, the tones of magnetism merging into one grand composition. The fields overlap, strengthen, and correct one another, until what once was chaos becomes harmony. Within that harmony, plasma takes shape, a luminous echo of the music that surrounds it. In the language of science, these patterns are equations, Maxwell's laws, Lorentz forces, and field gradients. But in motion, they feel alive, like chords sustaining one another in perfect pitch. Each magnetic loop is tuned to interact with the rest, creating resonance across dimensions. A current in one coil produces a field that reaches into another, forming a duet. Together they sustain the plasma in balance, not through brute containment, but through rhythm. The Stellarator does not command energy, it conducts it. The plasma itself becomes both listener and instrument. Charged particles spiral along magnetic lines, their motion creating secondary fields that join the whole arrangement. Nothing is separate. Every movement alters the symphony slightly, and the machine responds in kind. In this continuous feedback, the system finds equilibrium. The tiniest fluctuation, a swirl, a drift, meets its counterpoint instantly. Like a musician correcting a missed note, the fields compensate before instability can grow. The result is astonishing. Power held steady not by strength, but by harmony. To observe this balance is to glimpse nature's own sense of music. In the heavens, magnetic symphonies play on a cosmic scale. Solar flares rise and fall like crescendos, auroras dance across poles like flickering melodies, and the magnetic fields of planets hum at frequencies no ear can hear. The Stellarator replicates this celestial concert in miniature, a sonata of plasma and precision. It reveals that music is not merely human art, it is the physics of rhythm expressed through motion and field. Each coil in the Stellarator has a distinct voice. Some shape the outer boundaries of the field, defining space for the plasma to flow. Others adjust the fine structure within, softening turbulence, keeping rotation smooth. Together, They create a seamless continuum, a soundless orchestration that holds fire motionless in air. The patterns shift slowly, repeating in cycles like verses of a song. The longer the machine runs, the deeper the resonance grows. Energy finds its cadence. Matter learns to move without resistance. At moments of perfect confinement, the chamber glows with a color that defies description, a pale gold tinged with violet, like dawn refracted through crystal. Instruments record stable temperature, density, and confinement time, but numbers fail to convey the experience. The scientists who watch know they are witnessing coherence, a unity of forces that mirrors the unity within sound. For them, fusion is no longer only physics. It is performance, precision, and patience, blending into something transcendent. Beyond the walls of the laboratory, wind stirs trees, oceans shift tides, and the planet spins beneath the pull of its own magnetic field. All around, unseen harmonies continue their eternal work. The Stellarator simply joins this chorus, singing quietly with the same laws that keep galaxies turning. In its silence lies music too vast for the ear, too intricate for notation. It is the melody of order born from motion. The same song that began when the first stars ignited and continues still, carried by every atom that has ever touched light. And so the Stellarator stands as proof that the universe does not divide art and science. Both seek resonance, both crave balance, both rely on patterns that echo beyond their creators. Within its coils, harmony becomes power, and power becomes grace. The fusion it holds is more than energy. It is a reminder that the cosmos hums in every movement, a quiet, eternal symphony conducted by light itself. At first glance, the Stellarator defies simplicity. Its structure spirals and folds like something grown rather than built. Wires snake through steel ribs, twisting in deliberate disorder, each carrying a current that must arrive at its destination within a fraction of a heartbeat. Thousands of parts, all unique, fit together with a precision so fine that the gap between them is thinner than a whisper. The design appears chaotic, yet within that chaos lies an order more complete than symmetry could ever achieve. The complexity of the Stellarator was never vanity, it was necessity. To keep plasma confined without the aid of internal current, every coil had to differ slightly, each curve adjusting to compensate for the others. No piece could be identical, no pattern could repeat. The result was a structure that could not have existed before the age of computation. Supercomputers mapped the magnetic fields in countless variations, searching for the one configuration that would hold stability, as if nature itself had designed it. What they found was not a simple answer, but a symphony of solutions interwoven across dimensions. When the final design emerged, engineers faced a new challenge: to bring it into being. Each component demanded craftsmanship beyond industrial standard. Machines milled metal to tolerances finer than a strand of hair. Welders joined arcs of steel that curved in directions almost impossible for the eye to follow. The assembly required years of calibration, each adjustment influencing hundreds of others. It was a puzzle in motion, one that tested not only skill but faith in mathematics. Slowly, the pieces began to align, and the imagined geometry of perfection became real. Standing beside the completed Stellarator feels like standing beneath the ribs of a giant creature, one that breathes through magnetism and light. The air carries a faint metallic scent. The coils gleam like frozen rivers under fluorescent glow. Every detail, from the smallest bolt to the broadest arc, contributes to the balance that keeps the plasma still. When powered, the machine hums with a deep, steady tone, as if acknowledging its own coherence. What once existed only as theory now lives, and it is beautiful. The beauty is not in appearance alone, but in purpose. Each layer of intricacy serves harmony. The coils are arranged so that their fields cross and merge, creating a cage without walls. Inside that space, plasma dances in obedience to no single force, yet never escapes. It is the embodiment of paradox, freedom through constraint, simplicity born of complexity. To watch it work is to understand that chaos is merely order seen too closely. Step back, and the pattern appears, graceful, inevitable, whole. This machine stands as a testament to what patience can achieve. It was not built in haste or pride, but through generations of careful revision. Every error revealed a hidden truth. Every adjustment brought the design closer to equilibrium. The process mirrored the universe itself. Refinement through time, harmony emerging from trial. Scientists who work within its shadow often describe a sense of quiet reverence, not for their own success but for the laws that allowed it. They have not conquered energy, they have learned to converse with it. The Stellarator's complexity reflects something deeply human, the instinct to find meaning in the intricate, to turn understanding into form. Where chaos seems to reign, we search for structure, and in that search, we build beauty. The machine reminds us that perfection does not mean simplicity. It means balance, a network of countless details, each serving a purpose larger than itself. From that network emerges stability, light, and peace. When the plasma ignites and the chamber glows, all that complexity becomes invisible. Only radiance remains, smooth, effortless, serene. Yet beneath that serenity lives the labor of decades, the mathematics of elegance, and the artistry of precision. The Stellarator's curves hold the memory of every mind that shaped them, every question that dared to seek the stars. Its beauty is the kind that asks nothing and explains everything. That the universe, when understood deeply enough, reveals its truth not through simplicity, but through the grace of perfect complexity. Beyond the thick walls of steel and copper lies a world that seems detached from everything known. The air outside hums with electronics, computers, and cooling systems, yet inside the Stellarator's chamber there is silence, absolute and weightless. In that stillness floats plasma, a ribbon of light that bends and curls with hypnotic grace. It is neither liquid nor flame, but something between thought and matter. Within its glowing loops, atoms move faster than comprehension, colliding, merging, and creating the very energy that built the stars. This is the world within the machine, where the universe has been invited to perform on a smaller stage. The light inside the chamber does not burn. It hovers. It swirls as if searching for form, guided by fields invisible but precise. The walls, though close, are never touched. Between the plasma and its container lies emptiness, a vacuum purer than the air of any mountaintop, a space where only magnetic lines exist. Those lines are drawn not by hand, but by current, flowing through the Stellarator's coils like veins of frozen lightning. They form paths that curve upon themselves endlessly, ensuring that every motion returns to origin. The plasma follows these paths as faithfully as planets follow gravity, orbiting in perpetual renewal. The glow is alive with motion, yet nothing within it is random. Each particle, charged and restless, is part of a grand choreography written by mathematics. They spiral and twist along the lines of force, colliding in unity rather than chaos. Every rotation releases energy, a shimmer of light born from the fusion of atoms. To witness it, even through reinforced glass, is to see creation itself condensed to a point of silence. No roar, no flame, no destruction, only brightness floating in perfect balance. It is the calmest inferno ever made. Cameras and sensors capture the smallest fluctuations, translating them into data that ripple across monitors in adjacent rooms. Scientists watch the plasma's pulse as one might listen to a heartbeat, adjusting fields in microscopic increments to keep it steady. The chamber's interior reflects its own light, turning the metallic walls into mirrors of gold and violet. The machine seems less mechanical and more like a living organism, breathing in magnetism, exhaling illumination. It has no sound, yet its presence vibrates through the floor, a soft hum that feels like a heartbeat shared between human and star. To look into the Stellarator's heart is to confront the scale of existence in reverse. Stars stretch across the void, yet here, a star fits within a room. The same forces that shape galaxies now play out between bolts and circuits. It is humbling and exhilarating, proof that the laws of the cosmos are not distant decrees but universal harmonies, reachable through patience and understanding. The plasma is a teacher without words, showing that control is a form of listening, and that mastery often begins with respect for what cannot be touched. Time behaves differently inside this world, minutes stretch. Each moment of stability feels eternal, though the plasma itself may exist for only seconds. When it vanishes, darkness returns like a sigh, leaving behind the faint echo of its glow. The scientists step closer to the glass, studying the afterimage still lingering in their minds. What they see is not loss, but continuity. Every failure refines the next attempt. Every brief spark teaches the next configuration. In fusion, even disappearance is part of creation. The world inside the machine is a reminder that light does not belong to the heavens alone. It can live wherever knowledge is met with reverence. Within this chamber, the universe pauses, folds in upon itself, and reveals its essence. The Stellarator does not conquer the sun's fire. It learns from it, holds it gently, and returns it unbroken. In that quiet exchange between metal and light, humanity finds a reflection of its own potential, the ability to create, to nurture, and to let power rest peacefully in human hands. Within the Stellarator's heart, light moves as if time has forgotten it. The plasma drifts through invisible corridors of magnetism, curling and folding like silk suspended in water. Its rhythm is neither fast nor slow. It simply exists, a constant pulse of brightness that hums beneath the threshold of sound. The longer it endures, the more it resembles breathing. Each wave of energy expands, pauses, and returns upon itself, as though the machine and the light are inhaling together. In this quiet repetition, creation becomes calm, and power learns the stillness of sleep. The light glows without flame, without the violence of burning. Its color shifts between rose and amber, the tones of sunrise seen through mist. Around it, the vacuum holds perfect silence. Nothing moves except what must, and even motion feels unhurried. The plasma does not struggle against its boundaries. It moves in harmony with them. Its path is both freedom and restraint, a reminder that balance is the most natural form of peace. Every rotation repeats the same lesson, that to endure is not to resist, but to flow with what guides you. Outside the chamber, the world remains loud with motion, footsteps echoing down corridors, the hum of cooling systems, the whisper of data flowing to screens. Yet here, inside the magnetic cage, there is only equilibrium. The fields curve gently through space, carrying the charged particles in endless spirals. No collisions, no escape, no loss, just persistence, quiet and luminous. To observe it is to witness what serenity looks like when translated into physics. The plasma rests in motion, just as the mind can rest in thought, the body in stillness, the heart in light. It is easy to imagine that the Stellarator itself dreams. Its coils, cooled near absolute zero, hold currents that flow forever without fading. Those frozen rivers of electricity create a framework for the plasma's dance, a choreography of energy both endless and precise. Together, they form a balance so complete it feels alive. If one could listen closely enough, perhaps the machine would whisper its rhythm. Inhale, exhale, expand, release. This harmony between fire and frost, between movement and containment, is the soundless music of fusion at peace. In moments like this, the distinction between science and meditation dissolves. What happens inside the Stellarator is both experiment and reflection, a study of how the universe itself maintains order. The same rules that hold the plasma steady also hold galaxies in their spirals, seasons in their turning, lives in their rhythm. Each magnetic field echoes the shape of invisible forces that thread through everything. Watching the plasma drift within its luminous path, one senses that stillness is not the absence of energy but its gentlest form. As the hours pass, the hum of the machine becomes softer, more like a lullaby than a mechanism. The air outside cools, lights dim, and the soft glow within the chamber becomes the only source of illumination. It seems to breathe light into the room, not bright enough to dazzle, only enough to remind that creation continues even in quiet. The fields hold steady, and the plasma continues its slow orbit, unhurried and infinite. In that motion, sleep itself finds reflection. Endless cycles of energy, resting and rising, contained yet free. There is comfort in knowing that the same laws guiding this machine also guide the rhythm of the human body, the pulse, the breath, the drift toward rest. Each magnetic loop seems to echo the pattern of slowing thoughts, the way the mind curls inward before sleep. Just as plasma learns to stay suspended in its field, the body learns to float between waking and dreaming, carried by unseen forces toward balance. The Stellarator's light continues to drift, and in its glow lies permission to let go, to rest, to breathe, to follow the rhythm that holds the universe together. Somewhere beyond the glass, the light keeps circling, tireless yet serene. Energy finds peace, and peace, in turn, becomes energy again. What burns in the heart of stars now drifts quietly within the reach of human hands. And in that slow, eternal motion, both fire and thought fall gently into sleep. The pursuit of fusion has always been more than a scientific ambition. It is a moral one. Every age defines itself by how it creates and consumes energy, and every age learns its lessons in the light of that creation. Fire gave warmth and survival. Coal built empires and darkened skies. Oil brought speed and power but wrapped progress in dependence. Then came the atom, promising salvation and delivering both light and shadow. Through all of it, humanity has sought the same thing: continuity, a source of energy that sustains without harm, that gives without taking. Fusion is that hope made visible. To understand its importance, one need only look at the quiet scale of it. A handful of hydrogen, the fuel of the stars, could power a city for a day. From seawater, the world could draw its energy for millennia without fear of depletion. Fusion produces no smoke, no soot, no poison drifting into rivers. When it ends, there is nothing to bury, nothing to fear. It leaves behind only warmth, the way dawn leaves behind color on a calm horizon. Its waste is light, its legacy, renewal. The sun has burned for billions of years without ash. The Stellarator seeks to follow its example. For centuries, progress has been measured by consumption, by how much could be mined, burned, or refined. Fusion redefines that measurement. It is not extraction, but transformation. It does not drain the world, but mirrors it. The energy released in fusion already exists in the hydrogen that fills every ocean, waiting patiently to be awakened. To access it requires no conquest, no destruction, only understanding. Humanity's greatest technological act becomes an act of imitation, learning to do what the universe already does, effortlessly, but with humility and precision. Beyond its environmental promise lies something deeper: the restoration of trust between progress and nature. The age of combustion taught us to fear our own inventions, to live in the tension between necessity and consequence. Fusion replaces that tension with balance. It offers the possibility of a civilization that no longer burns the future to feed the present. It is the embodiment of stewardship, not mastery over matter, but partnership with it. Through machines like the Stellarator, we learn that the most powerful force in the cosmos can also be the most forgiving. The implications stretch beyond the laboratory. Energy touches everything: water, food, health, shelter, communication, exploration. A stable, clean source of it would dissolve many of the boundaries that divide nations and generations. Where scarcity once sowed conflict, abundance could cultivate peace. Where pollution dimmed skies, clarity could return. The hum of fusion reactors might one day replace the roar of engines, their light illuminating cities without burning the air around them. The vision is grand, yet it begins in something small, a few atoms uniting in silence. But perhaps what matters most about fusion is not the energy it gives, but the philosophy it teaches. In fusion, power comes from joining, not breaking, from cooperation, not competition. It is the science of unity expressed through light. The Stellarator embodies this lesson. Its complex curves, each depending on the others, show that perfection arises from connection. The plasma within, sustained by countless invisible relationships, mirrors the way life itself endures, through balance, through rhythm, through mutual support. When the Stellarator runs, it glows with a calm that feels almost moral. Inside, hydrogen becomes helium, and in that change lies the entire story of existence. transformation without violence, strength without greed, light without loss. It reminds us that the universe's greatest act of creation is also its most peaceful. The same process that forged the stars can power our world without wounding it. To pursue fusion, then, is to participate in that cosmic generosity, to become, for a moment, a collaborator with creation itself. Fusion matters because it allows humanity to be both powerful and kind. It fulfills the oldest dream, to live in warmth without taking warmth from another, to let the earth breathe freely again. It shows that science, when guided by care, can heal what ambition once harmed. And as the Stellarator continues to hum in its steady rhythm, the world draws closer to a truth written in light, that the future need not burn, it can glow. Before fusion found its harmony, it existed as a storm. Early experiments were wild symphonies of energy, flashes that dazzled and vanished, magnetic fields that twisted out of shape, plasma that refused to obey. Every attempt to hold the light seemed doomed to fail. The chambers would fill with brilliance for an instant, then collapse into darkness. But in each failure lay a clue, and in each flicker of light, a pattern waiting to be understood. The journey from chaos to control was not sudden revelation, but the slow unfolding of patience. Scientists began to see that the plasma was not misbehaving. It was following laws they had not yet learned. Its turbulence was a kind of truth, a language spoken in heat and motion. By studying those fluctuations, the ripples, the spirals, the collapse, researchers uncovered the grammar of confinement. They discovered that to guide plasma, they had to think like it, flexible, adaptive, dynamic. It could not be forced into stillness. It had to be led into rhythm. That shift in understanding marked the true beginning of mastery. The Stellarator became the embodiment of that new philosophy. Its coils were not symmetrical by accident. They were shaped to anticipate imperfection. Each curve corrects what the last introduces, forming a continuous feedback loop of balance. Inside its chamber, instability is not eliminated. It is absorbed, redirected, transformed into motion that sustains itself. The machine does not silence chaos, it orchestrates it. In that orchestration lies its genius. Energy flows without resistance, because every field knows its part in the greater pattern. The result is not stillness, but harmony, sustained through motion. As researchers tuned the machine, they learned that even the smallest adjustment mattered. A single change in magnetic strength, a shift in angle measured in millimeters, could mean the difference between collapse and continuity. Weeks of work might hinge on fractions of a degree, yet this precision became a kind of meditation, repetition turning into understanding, data into intuition. The more they refined, the quieter the errors became, until the plasma no longer escaped but remained, glowing steadily at the center like a candle sheltered from the wind. Order did not come easily. The process demanded humility as much as intellect. Every success revealed a new layer of complexity. Every improvement exposed another weakness to be solved. But this was the beauty of fusion. It rewarded persistence with progress that felt earned. Unlike combustion, which flares and consumes, fusion matures slowly, like learning a song until the melody is second nature. The scientists who guided it became conductors of invisible forces, their instruments tuned not by sound but by the faint vibration of magnetism itself. Gradually, the flashes of light grew longer. What once lasted milliseconds endured for minutes. Sensors recorded stability where before there had been only chaos. The plasma began to trust its confinement, looping endlessly along the paths the Stellarator had drawn. For the first time, the reaction sustained itself in near-perfect equilibrium, a small sun suspended in air, breathing softly within its cage of fields. Humanity had not conquered the fire. It had learned to hold conversation with it. The transformation from chaos to control was not only technical but symbolic. It showed that understanding is stronger than force, that the path to mastery is not through domination but through dialogue. The Stellarator teaches that power, when treated gently, reveals its most generous nature. To control fusion is to cooperate with the universe's oldest design, a design that thrives on balance, not aggression. Now, when the machine hums and the plasma glows without flicker, it represents more than an achievement of physics. It is a reflection of humanity's capacity for patience, its willingness to learn from its own mistakes, to listen rather than demand. In the quiet of the reactor hall, the light no longer fights to escape. It moves in peace, guided by hands that finally understand its rhythm. What was once chaos has become harmony, and what was once only light has become meaning. At the core of every fusion reaction lies a moment so small it defies imagination. Two atoms, each a universe unto itself, drift close enough to touch. Their approach is cautious, resisted by invisible walls of charge, yet driven by the immense pull of possibility. When they finally meet, the world changes. The barrier dissolves, their boundaries merge, and from that unity bursts a brilliance older than time. This is fusion's secret, not violence, but union, not destruction, but becoming. It is the universe's most intimate dance, repeated in every star, every sunbeam, and now, within the chamber of a machine built by human hands. In the Stellarator, this ancient choreography unfolds in silence. Hydrogen atoms, stripped of their electrons, swirl through the magnetic labyrinth, drawn together by heat so intense that even thought seems to waver. The plasma roils and folds, yet within that apparent chaos, perfect order emerges. Particles follow precise spirals, intersecting in moments of creation that last less than a heartbeat. Each collision fuses nuclei into something new, releasing energy in a form both invisible and infinite. It is the same light that has crossed the cosmos since the birth of stars, now reborn under the guidance of geometry and patience. The reaction itself is deceptively simple. Two light nuclei join to form a heavier one, and in that act, a fragment of mass vanishes, transformed into energy according to the quiet authority of Einstein's equation. The numbers are vast, yet the principle is humble, a reminder that even in physics, transformation begins with connection. From the smallest acts of unity arise the greatest expressions of power. The Stellarator, with its coils and fields and delicate balance, serves as both vessel and metaphor for that truth. The plasma, glowing like molten glass, embodies this process in motion. Each particle contributes to a collective harmony, its path shaped by unseen curves that protect and sustain it. The magnetic fields bend and twist, ensuring that no single atom bears the burden alone. Energy circulates, renewing itself endlessly. The result is not explosion, but equilibrium, a steady radiance that endures without consuming. It is energy without greed, power without waste, light without shadow. The same law that governs fusion governs all of creation. When forces align instead of collide, something greater than either can emerge. There is a quiet irony in the scale of it. The universe's most powerful reaction occurs through its smallest participants. Within that tiny union, entire worlds are lit. It suggests that strength is not size, but coherence, that greatness is not expansion, but alignment. Each fusion event is an affirmation of harmony, the smallest echo of the cosmic pulse that began everything. When the Stellarator sustains that pulse, humanity participates in the rhythm of the stars, keeping time with the universe itself. The scientists who watch this process often describe a sense of reverence. The screens glow with data, yet beneath the numbers, there is something that cannot be quantified. The feeling of witnessing creation unfold, not through faith, but through comprehension. They see the dance of atoms not as an abstraction, but as a reflection of the very forces that form their own existence. Every breath, every cell, every spark of consciousness owes its origin to this same transformation. In fusion, humanity rediscovers its ancestry in light. As the plasma holds steady, the dance continues, infinite in repetition. No music plays, no sound escapes, yet everything moves in rhythm. The energy born within those collisions radiates outward, bathing the chamber in a golden glow. It is gentle and unhurried, a pulse that mirrors the beating of the heart. The Stellarator hums, the plasma turns, and the universe repeats its oldest act, two becoming one, darkness becoming dawn. In that perpetual motion lies not just the future of energy, but the story of creation itself, a story that began with a single embrace between atoms and has never truly ended. Behind the shining complexity of the Stellarator lies something quieter than plasma and more powerful than magnetism, the persistence of human will. Every curve of steel, every coiled wire, every calculation that defines its perfection was shaped by people who refused to surrender to failure. Generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers have walked the long corridor from theory to creation. Their hands and minds turned mathematics into form, uncertainty into progress. Without them, the geometry of light would remain only a dream on paper, a pattern in the imagination rather than a living instrument of energy. The Stellarator did not emerge from one discovery or one person's vision alone. It grew through collaboration, through minds scattered across decades and continents, connected by curiosity and faith in the same question. Could humanity learn to hold the power of the stars without fear? Each scientist who joined the effort inherited not certainty but challenge. They entered laboratories where results flickered and vanished, where optimism met limitation daily, and yet they continued. What drove them was not mere ambition, but the sense that understanding itself was worth the struggle. There is something profoundly human about such persistence. The Stellarator demanded patience bordering on devotion. It required faith in equations that could not yet be proven, trust in tools still being invented, and humility before nature's complexity. Many who worked on it knew they would never see fusion achieve full practicality within their lifetimes, yet they contributed anyway, building foundations for others to stand upon. Their labor became an offering, a quiet acknowledgement that progress belongs to time, not individuals. In the workshops where its parts were forged, the work was not glamorous. It was precise, repetitive, relentless. Technicians bent metal that resisted their will, machined curves that defied ordinary measurement, and assembled structures where even a fraction of misalignment could undo years of design. They learned to think in 3 dimensions, to see symmetry where none appeared, to trust the language of blueprints that looked more like art than engineering. When the final pieces were joined and the machine stood complete, it was more than an experiment. It was a monument to patience. The scientists who first saw plasma ignite within the Stellarator described the moment not as triumph but as quiet recognition. The light glowed softly, and in it, they saw the reflection of their own persistence. The machine had not conquered nature, it had learned to listen to it. That small difference changed everything. The success of fusion was not a victory of dominance but of understanding, proof that intelligence could guide rather than exploit. For a brief moment, the line between creator and creation blurred, and the human heart seemed to pulse in time with the light inside the chamber. Even today, the Stellarator's story continues as a collaboration of countless unseen hands. Some design new algorithms to refine its fields, others craft new alloys to withstand its demands. Many simply maintain it, ensuring that its perfect symmetry endures. Each role, whether grand or humble, contributes to the same pursuit, to keep light alive in balance. These people do not chase fame, they build continuity. Their names may fade, but their work will echo in every watt of energy that flows from the stars to Earth. The human element is what gives the Stellarator its true power. Machines can shape magnetism, only people can shape meaning. The light within its chamber burns because generations chose to believe in something larger than themselves, that knowledge could unite rather than divide, that patience could illuminate the dark. In every hum of its coils, in every curve of its frame, there lingers the fingerprint of human curiosity, that restless spark which refuses to fade. And though the machine holds a sun within it, it is humanity that truly glows. For decades, the race toward controlled fusion was defined by 2 visions, 2 machines that sought to cradle the same impossible light. One was the tokamak, a Russian design whose name translates simply to toroidal chamber with magnetic coils. The other was the Stellarator, its quiet rival, twisting through dimensions with a more intricate grace. Both shared a dream, to bring the power of the stars to Earth. Yet their paths diverged, not in ambition, but in philosophy. The tokamak believed in simplicity. The Stellarator believed in harmony. The tokamak's design was elegant in its clarity. A ring-shaped chamber, smooth and symmetrical, surrounded by coils that produced a magnetic field. Within it, plasma spun like a current in a circular river, stabilized by electric flow that pulsed through its heart. For years, this machine dominated fusion research. It was powerful, efficient, and comparatively easy to construct. Its success was undeniable, yet hidden within its triumph lay a limitation. The tokamak required constant electrical current to sustain its confinement, a rhythm that could falter. Like a song dependent on a conductor, it could not play without ceaseless supervision. The Stellarator approached the problem differently. Instead of relying on internal current, it wove its stability directly into the shape of its fields. Its coils twisted through space with deliberate complexity, generating confinement that existed naturally, without the need for external correction. The plasma inside could, in theory, remain stable indefinitely, flowing along magnetic lines that never ended. The machine did not need constant attention. It embodied balance by design. Where the tokamak imposed control, the Stellarator created agreement, a dialogue between motion and structure. For a long time, the tokamak's practicality overshadowed its rival. Its straightforward geometry allowed faster progress, clearer results. Governments and institutions poured resources into perfecting it, while the Stellarator lingered in the margins, its promise deferred by technological limits. Computers of that era could not model its intricate curves. Factories could not manufacture its unique parts. The world chose the simpler path, and for decades, the circle outpaced the spiral. Yet science, like nature, often turns in cycles. What once seemed too complex would one day become necessary. As materials improved and computational power expanded, the Stellarator's design emerged from dormancy like a seed meeting spring. Advanced modeling revealed that its complex shape was not chaos but precision, a near-perfect confinement geometry that could surpass the tokamak's limits. Its advantage lay in endurance. It could operate continuously, without the pulses and pauses that defined its simpler cousin. No internal current meant fewer instabilities, fewer disruptions, and the possibility of a fusion reaction that could last not seconds but hours, days, even longer. The elegance of patience had returned. The relationship between the two machines is not rivalry but reflection. They represent two sides of the same human impulse, to find balance between simplicity and completeness. The tokamak taught us how to ignite fusion. The Stellarator teaches us how to sustain it. Together, they form a dialogue, the circle and the spiral, the straightforward and the intricate, the disciplined and the adaptive. Science progresses through such partnerships, not through victory. The success of one becomes the foundation of the other. Today, as the Stellarator hums in its quiet perfection, it carries within it the legacy of every tokamak that came before. Each experiment, each flash of plasma, each failure and success contributed to its refinement. The story of fusion is not one of competition, but of evolution. A series of shapes learning to listen more closely to light. The circle gave birth to the spiral. The spiral returns the favor by completing the dream. The Stellarator's path beyond the tokamak is not about surpassing, but about deepening. It is a lesson in patience and perspective, proof that progress sometimes moves not in a straight line, but in graceful curves. In the end, both machines point to the same truth, that the way to contain the universe's most powerful energy is not through simplicity alone, but through harmony, born of understanding. The circle must eventually twist. The straight path must learn to turn. The Stellarator's form is a study in patience, a spiral without beginning or end, turning gently through space like a thought that refuses to fade. Within its coils, plasma flows in endless motion, yet that motion feels like rest. Every curve guides the light toward balance. Every twist slows chaos into rhythm. The energy within no longer seeks to escape. It moves in harmony with the shape that holds it. In the quiet of its operation, one can almost sense the universe exhaling, as if the storm has finally learned how to sleep. The spiral has always carried meaning in nature. It is the shape of galaxies, shells, storms, and seeds. It reflects growth and stillness at once, expansion folded around a calm center. The Stellarator mirrors that same design, born not from chance but from listening. Its builders discovered that confinement could be achieved not by rigidity but by flow, that peace is a function of motion well guided. The plasma inside follows that law instinctively, swirling through the labyrinth of magnetic fields, never colliding, never slowing, yet never escaping. Its grace is not the absence of energy but its perfect arrangement. When the reactor runs, the light inside shifts from gold to white to soft blue, like breathing in color. No sound accompanies the motion. The air around remains still. The coils, cooled to near absolute zero, conduct their endless currents with the steadiness of a heartbeat. The magnetic fields hum invisibly, tracing paths as delicate as silk threads. Inside, the plasma obeys their rhythm, its movement smooth and unhurried. To watch it is to witness balance incarnate, a portrait of energy at rest, power without strain. It is the calm eye within the storm, the universe's own meditation. The spiral does not exist only within the machine. It echoes in every system that finds peace through rhythm. Tides moving with the moon, lungs rising and falling with breath, thoughts unwinding into sleep. Each motion returns upon itself, creating renewal without exhaustion. The Stellarator's plasma does the same, a river of light that flows forever without loss, contained by understanding rather than force. Its shape reminds us that rest is not stillness but the harmony between motion and restraint. Just as the plasma flows within invisible boundaries, so does the mind when it drifts toward rest. Imagine the spiral as a path that does not lead forward or back, but inward. At its center lies quiet, a place untouched by haste or resistance. The plasma moves toward this center with every rotation, yet never reaches it fully. It circles endlessly, as if to preserve the calm rather than consume it. In this gentle pursuit, it mirrors the rhythm of dreams, perpetual motion held within serenity. The Stellarator does not burn, it breathes. It does not fight gravity, it learns to move alongside it. In doing so, it transforms turbulence into peace. As night deepens outside the laboratory, the machine continues to hum in its steady cadence. Its light softens, casting faint reflections on the chamber walls. There is no urgency in its glow, only continuity, a reminder that power need not roar to be strong. Within those coils, the universe has been invited to rest for a while, to fold its infinite motion into a smaller, quieter shape. The plasma flows, the magnets hold, and the spiral turns endlessly, tracing perfection without beginning, without end. The Stellarator teaches that rest is not an interruption of energy but its purest form. The spiral, both within the machine and within ourselves, shows that motion guided by balance becomes peace. When energy stops struggling, it shines more gently. When the mind stops chasing, it sees more clearly. As the plasma drifts through its luminous path, the world seems to breathe with it, calm, weightless, unhurried. The stars above continue their own spirals, and the Stellarator mirrors them below, each rotation whispering the same truth. Even fire can rest, even motion can dream. Every great leap in understanding begins with an unseen breakthrough. For the Stellarator, progress came not from sudden revelation but from the accumulation of quiet miracles, advances in material, computation, and patience that slowly unlocked the impossible. The machine's design had long outpaced its era. In the mid-20th century, the mathematics of its magnetic fields existed, but the tools to build them did not. Its geometry demanded precision that hands and machines could not yet achieve. The dream waited, sleeping in blueprints, until technology caught up with imagination. The first miracle was the mastery of superconductivity, the ability to carry current without loss. In earlier decades, magnetic fields had to be maintained by immense power, wasting energy as heat. Superconductors changed that. When cooled to temperatures near absolute zero, certain metals allow electricity to flow endlessly, creating stable, silent magnetism. This discovery gave the Stellarator its endurance. Coils could now sustain their fields for hours, days, perhaps indefinitely, without weakening. Power no longer meant noise and effort. it became stillness. The cold made the machine stronger, teaching that strength can arise from quiet rather than force. The second miracle was digital vision, computers capable of translating equations into reality. The Stellarator's twisted design cannot be drawn by intuition alone. It exists in a space beyond ordinary geometry. Each coil bends according to invisible constraints: plasma pressure, field line curvature, resonance stability. Thousands of variables interact like stars in orbit, each dependent on the others. Only supercomputers could model such complexity, simulating every contour until the perfect shape emerged. When the calculations finally resolved into three-dimensional form, it was not chaos but elegance, a structure that seemed grown, not engineered. Human intellect had finally learned to see in the language of magnetism. The third miracle was precision itself, the art of building something that tolerates no error. The Stellarator's parts number in the millions, each one unique. Engineers developed new manufacturing techniques to craft components curved in ways no tool had ever cut. Robots and lasers replaced hammers and wrenches. Even the assembly required choreography. Pieces were positioned, adjusted, and secured, with margins smaller than the width of a human hair. Every step carried the same quiet discipline that defines the fusion it sought to create. Order was achieved not through speed, but through care measured in fractions. When all these miracles converged, superconductivity, computation, precision, the Stellarator awakened. The machine that once existed only in theory now stood complete, its coils gleaming like sculpted silver veins. When current flowed through them for the first time, the magnetic field formed exactly as predicted. Sensors confirmed the perfection of alignment. The plasma that filled its chamber moved without chaos, following its intended path as naturally as a planet follows its orbit. The design that had waited half a century had found its moment. What makes these achievements miraculous is not their scale, but their subtlety. None of them changed the laws of physics. They simply learned to work within them more gracefully. The Stellarator does not force nature to yield, it asks it to cooperate. Its magnetism does not imprison plasma, but invites it into balance. This is technology as conversation, not command. Each advancement serves the same purpose: to make human ingenuity compatible with the quiet logic of the universe. In the laboratories where the machine hums, these miracles unfold without spectacle. The superconducting coils rest in frozen silence, colder than space itself. The computers hum softly, translating magnetism into motion. Engineers walk between consoles and screens, watching a sun held still by thought and steel. It is not a triumph of dominance, but of precision, proof that understanding can transform impossibility into grace. The Stellarator's very existence is a reminder that the miracles we create are not those that defy nature, but those that finally learn to follow it. On the northern coast of Germany, near the quiet town of Greifswald, stands a machine that seems more like sculpture than science. Hidden behind the walls of a low silver building lies Wendelstein's 7X, the largest and most advanced Stellarator ever built. Its form is beyond human intuition, a maze of curved coils and steel vessels that twist through space with mathematical precision. From above, it looks like something alive, a metallic organism coiled in sleep, dreaming of light. Yet within this complex shape rests one of the greatest achievements of human imagination: a man-made star that breathes in silence. The construction of Wendelstein's 7X was a task of monumental patience. Thousands of engineers, physicists, and craftsmen worked for nearly 2 decades to bring its impossible design into being. Each of its 50 non-identical superconducting coils was forged to microscopic tolerance, shaped to match the exact contours calculated by supercomputers. Even the supporting structures had to flex ever so slightly to allow for thermal expansion when the machine awakened. It was a marriage between art and accuracy, steel bent into poetry. Every bolt, every weld carried the weight of years, each one a note in a composition written for light. When the reactor was first powered, the room filled not with noise, but with quiet awe. The superconductors cooled to a temperature colder than the space between stars, and when current flowed, the magnetic field formed exactly as predicted, a seamless cage of invisible grace. Hydrogen gas was introduced, and for a moment the chamber glowed. The plasma curved and shimmered within its path, tracing the geometry of perfection. The light lasted only a few seconds, yet those seconds changed everything. It proved that the Stellarator could work not just in theory, but in reality, a stable sun within a human frame. Subsequent tests lengthened those moments into minutes. Each run brought greater stability, longer confinement, more refined control. The plasma behaved not as a captive, but as a guest, responding gently to its magnetic environment. Observers watched from control rooms behind layers of glass, their faces illuminated by the reflection of a sun contained in steel. For them, the glow was more than success. It was vindication, proof that decades of faith in complexity had been justified. The dream of endless energy was no longer distant. It had begun to breathe. The Wendelstein 7X is not only a scientific instrument, it is a statement of belief. Its design says that beauty and function are inseparable, that the universe reveals itself not to force, but to precision and patience. It stands as a monument to cooperation, hundreds of minds across countries and languages working in unison towards something larger than any one of them. In its silence lies the hum of humanity's shared aspiration, to coexist with the power that created us. The Stellarator does not challenge the sun, it joins it in purpose. What makes this machine so extraordinary is not only its complexity, but its humility. It does not claim finality. It knows it is a step, a foundation for future generations who will refine its design and extend its promise. Its success lies not in completion, but in continuation. Each pulse of plasma, each moment of confinement, is a conversation between past and future, between thought and light. The scientists who stand beside it understand that they are caretakers, not conquerors, stewards of a flame older than time. As the last pulses of the day fade and the chamber cools, the building grows quiet again. Outside, the wind from the Baltic Sea whispers against the walls. Inside, the machine rests, its magnets cold and still, its energy folded into sleep. Yet within that stillness, the story continues. The Wendelstein 7X waits patiently for its next awakening, for another chance to hold the universe in its hands. And when it does, the light that fills its chamber will not just illuminate steel, it will illuminate everything humanity has become capable of when it learns to listen to the stars. Before there were words, there was light. It poured across the newborn universe, scattering through dust and silence, carrying with it the first message of existence: I am here. Every star, every flame, every shimmer that has ever reached an eye is part of that same conversation. To study fusion is to learn that language, not through speech, but through resonance. It is the grammar of energy, the syntax of motion, the poetry written in heat and radiance. The Stellarator does not merely recreate that language, it listens to it, repeating each syllable with precision and grace. Light is more than illumination. It is information, emotion, and presence. It tells the story of every place it has touched, every element it has met. When light from the plasma within the Stellarator strikes the chamber walls, it carries the tale of atoms uniting, of motion finding equilibrium. The wavelengths shimmer through gold and blue, their spectrum revealing temperature, density, and life. Scientists read these patterns like sentences, a fluent conversation with creation itself. In their glow lies the record of balance achieved, of fire persuaded to remain calm. There is something deeply human about decoding such brilliance. For millennia, light has been our teacher and companion. It guided migrations, inspired faith, and marked the rhythm of days and seasons. Painters sought to capture it, philosophers to define it, poets to describe what it made them feel. Now, in laboratories of magnet and steel, humanity continues that same pursuit, not with brushes or verses, but with precision instruments and patient eyes. The Stellarator is a new form of art, not one that imitates light, but one that collaborates with it. When plasma burns within the reactor, it speaks in flickers too fast for the human eye. Sensors translate those pulses into data, and from that data emerges music, shape, and meaning. Each fluctuation is a word, each stable confinement a sentence. The light says, "This is balance," and humanity responds, "We understand." In that dialogue lies the essence of science, not command, but comprehension. To work with fusion is to join an ancient conversation that began before language itself and continues in every sunrise. The purity of fusion light is unlike any other. It carries no smoke, no residue, no sorrow of destruction. It is born from unity alone, two particles meeting and becoming something greater. The energy it releases is gentle in its purpose, eternal in its generosity. The Stellarator holds that purity in its magnetic fields, preserving the light's tone without distortion. Inside the chamber, it glows steady and kind, as though aware of its own significance. It is the same light that has touched the eyes of ancient travelers, the same that feeds the forests and warms the oceans. In fusion, humanity is not inventing light but returning it home. What makes this language remarkable is its universality. Light needs no translation. It reaches every being, every world, every corner of space without prejudice. Its truth is shared equally among stars and cells. When the Stellarator shines, it does so in the same dialect as the sun above and the fire within a single candle. This shared tongue of radiance reminds us that separation is illusion. Matter, energy, thought, all are expressions of the same luminous origin. The machine, in its silent glow, becomes a translator of unity. To stand before that light is to remember what it means to belong. The photons that leave the chamber carry with them the same message that filled the first dawn. Harmony can exist, balance can last. Energy and peace are not opposites. The Stellarator speaks this truth without sound, without motion, only through radiance. It tells us that the universe, in all its vastness, is still speaking, and that we, by learning to listen, become part of its endless conversation. The dream of infinite energy has haunted human imagination for centuries. It whispered through the alchemists' laboratories, flickered in the lamps of inventors, and pulsed in every heart that feared the exhaustion of resources. Yet true infinity was never about abundance alone. It was about balance, the kind of continuity that sustains rather than consumes. In the Stellarator, this dream begins to take shape, not as an empire of power, but as a garden of endurance. Here, energy does not end because it does not destroy to exist. It simply renews itself in a circle as old as the cosmos. Inside the machine, the plasma never burns in the way a flame does. It transforms gently, trading one form of energy for another, releasing light without leaving scars. In that transformation lies the key to sustainability. Nothing wasted, nothing taken beyond what is given. The process feels infinite because it mirrors the universe's own method, creation through harmony, not conflict. Stars have followed this pattern since time began. The Stellarator, in its quiet precision, imitates their patience. Its promise is not perpetual motion, but perpetual balance. Infinity in energy does not mean excess, it means peace. The more perfectly a system aligns with natural law, the less effort it requires to continue. The Stellarator thrives on that principle. Once its superconducting coils form their fields, the magnetic order endures without constant input. The plasma, once stabilized, sustains itself through the rhythm of fusion, like a breath that feeds on its own exhale. Power becomes continuity, and continuity becomes calm. The energy that emerges is not forced, it flows. The machine's creators often describe this realization as humbling. Humanity has spent centuries trying to dominate energy, to burn, split, and harness it through pressure and extraction. But here, in the quiet hum of the Stellarator, dominance gives way to partnership. The light it releases is pure because the process respects the very forces it uses. It does not demand obedience from nature, it joins her in cooperation. The endless energy of fusion is therefore not a triumph over the universe, but a reconciliation with it. If the earth could speak, perhaps it would recognize this sound, the gentle rhythm of power that does no harm. Fusion promises a return to harmony between need and nurture, a way to exist without depletion. Oceans could remain oceans, skies could remain blue, and the hum of civilization could merge seamlessly with the pulse of the planet. Infinite energy does not mean infinite consumption. It means freedom from the fear of running out. It is the serenity of knowing that creation need not come at a cost. Yet even infinity requires responsibility. The Stellarator's promise is only as pure as the intentions behind it. The energy it provides will carry the imprint of those who use it. It can heal, or it can waste, illuminate, or overwhelm. The lesson of fusion is not simply how to make energy, but how to honor it. Just as the plasma must stay balanced to remain whole, so too must humanity remain balanced in its stewardship. Endless power demands endless care. When the machine runs perfectly, the light inside does not flicker. It glows with the steady calm of understanding realized. In that glow, the concept of forever becomes tangible. Not as a number, but as a feeling, the knowledge that continuity is possible when harmony is found. The Stellarator embodies this truth with quiet confidence. Its energy is not infinite because it lasts forever, but because it belongs to a cycle that never breaks. As long as balance endures, so does light. And so, the idea of infinite energy turns out not to be a fantasy of conquest, but a recognition of order. The universe has always provided enough. We only needed to learn to listen. The Stellarator listens perfectly. It takes what the stars already know and repeats it softly, endlessly. That energy without end is not about power without limit, but peace without interruption. The Stellarator teaches a paradox so simple it feels ancient, that real power is quiet. Within its chamber, the most extreme energies in the universe move without sound, without struggle. The plasma glows, suspended between magnetic walls, contained not by force but by balance. It is a lesson written in light, that harmony, not dominance, sustains strength. The stars have always known this, but only now has humanity begun to follow their example. Power that endures does not resist its nature, it aligns with it. The idea of harmony as strength has echoed across centuries, from the wisdom of philosophers to the equations of physics. Every system, whether natural or human, survives through equilibrium. Rivers carve their valleys without breaking the land. Wind shapes the desert without crushing it. Even galaxies, vast beyond imagination, hold their form through the pull between gravity and motion. The Stellarator is another version of this principle, an instrument tuned to the frequency of order. Its magnetic fields do not imprison plasma, they guide it through cooperation. The result is not containment, but coexistence. In traditional power, the world measures greatness by control, by how much can be moved, consumed, or commanded. But the Stellarator redefines that measurement. It achieves stability not by overwhelming chaos, but by listening to it. Each curve of its coils, each subtle shift in field strength, acknowledges the plasma's natural behavior. The design does not fight turbulence, it dances with it. Where older reactors relied on correction and resistance, this machine relies on trust, a trust built through understanding. That trust becomes its strength. Scientists often speak of magnetic confinement, but the word confinement feels misplaced. What happens inside the Stellarator is more akin to collaboration. The plasma finds comfort in the fields, and the fields, in turn, find purpose in shaping the plasma. The two exist as partners in rhythm, maintaining one another. When the system functions perfectly, there is no friction, no wasted effort, only continuation. This is harmony as power, energy so well balanced that it requires no struggle to persist. Outside the chamber, this truth extends beyond science. Harmony governs every aspect of endurance, from ecosystems that renew themselves to societies that thrive on cooperation rather than conquest. The same logic that allows plasma to flow forever applies to the rhythm of human progress. Conflict consumes energy, balance sustains it. The Stellarator becomes more than a reactor, it becomes metaphor. Its quiet hum whispers a question to all who listen. What might our world look like if we learned to guide rather than dominate, to align rather than impose? Each test of the Stellarator reinforces this idea. When the plasma is stable, the room grows still. Instruments record steady lines, temperatures remain constant, and for a moment, the universe feels perfectly aligned with itself. That balance is fragile, but within it lies a glimpse of eternity. Not endless time, but timelessness. The plasma, the magnets, the people who built them, all share one principle. Power is not the force that disrupts balance, it is the art that maintains it. In its glow, the Stellarator reflects humanity's slow evolution toward gentleness. The same species that once split atoms in violence has learned to merge them in grace. The machine's steady light is not only scientific triumph, but moral testimony, proof that mastery need not mean destruction. Harmony, it turns out, is the ultimate form of intelligence. It requires listening, patience, and precision, the qualities that separate creation from control. As the machine hums on, its lesson becomes clear. Strength is not noise. Power is not speed. Endurance is not defiance. True power is quiet alignment, the balance that allows motion to continue without collapse. The Stellarator holds this truth in its luminous heart, reminding us that harmony is not the opposite of power. It is its purest expression. There is a silence that fills the universe, not empty but full, a silence between stars, between pulses of light, between one breath and the next. It is in this silence that the Stellarator finds its kinship with the cosmos. Though it hums softly in a laboratory on Earth, the calm it creates belongs to the same quiet that stretches through space. Inside its chamber, plasma drifts in slow spirals, bright and weightless, like fragments of starlight remembering their origin. Each curve of motion is a whisper of infinity, each flicker a heartbeat of the universe at rest. The stillness between stars is not absence, it is balance. Space holds suns and galaxies in tension so perfect that motion continues without conflict. Gravity pulls, inertia yields, and the result is harmony vast beyond comprehension. The Stellarator, in its smaller scale, recreates that same serenity. Its magnetic fields weave through one another like invisible threads, holding the plasma not by force but by trust. Within that arrangement, energy moves freely yet remains contained, motion existing without haste, fire without destruction, time without measure. The plasma glows, not as a blaze but as a breath. It expands and contracts in rhythm, echoing the rise and fall of tides, the slow beating of a heart. Its color shifts through shades of gold and blue, reflections of the same spectrum that paints the edges of distant nebulae. The light it gives is gentle, never searing, as though aware of the stillness it inhabits. To watch it is to feel the presence of something infinite folded into the finite, a piece of the night sky learning to rest within the shape of human design. Around the chamber, the air grows cool, and every sound fades into the background hum of machinery. The coils hold their current without effort. The plasma moves without friction. Nothing strains, nothing rushes. It is as if the machine has discovered the natural tempo of existence, the cadence that connects atoms and stars alike. In that cadence lies calm, the kind of peace that comes not from stillness alone but from motion perfectly understood. The Stellarator's light flows as thought does in the moments before sleep, fluid, unhurried, timeless. When you close your eyes, you might imagine this same rhythm surrounding you. The body, like plasma, finds its balance through invisible fields, breath, pulse, warmth, awareness. Each one aligns quietly with the other until rest emerges, not forced, but found. The Stellarator's hum becomes the echo of that inner alignment. Its coils, curved with purpose, mirror the pattern of lungs expanding and releasing, of hearts circulating their endless currents. In this harmony, even the boundaries between human and machine, between earth and star, begin to fade. The stillness between stars has always been misunderstood as void, but it is anything but empty. It holds the memory of creation, the quiet aftermath of light's arrival. Within it, energy travels forever, unbroken and unafraid. The Stellarator captures a small piece of that eternity, letting it unfold in manageable scale. It reminds us that peace is not the absence of energy, but its most complete expression. The same stillness that cradles galaxies can live inside a magnetic field, inside a moment of calm, inside the slowing breath that drifts towards sleep. As night deepens, the world outside fades, and the machine glows faintly against the dark. The plasma continues its slow turning, unbothered by time. The stars beyond the ceiling turn in their own spirals, distant yet bound by the same rules. Somewhere between them and here lies a shared silence, the stillness that unites everything that moves. The Stellarator does not break that silence. It joins it. Its light breathes gently into the darkness, as though to say, "Rest." Even fire rests. Even stars sleep in their turning. Every masterpiece begins with hands. Not hands alone, but the minds that guide them, the steady patience that turns vision into precision. The Stellarator was not born from theory alone, it was built by people who trusted that impossible beauty could become reality. They called themselves engineers, but their work belonged as much to art as to science. Each curve they shaped, each calculation they refined, was a step toward teaching the universe a new form of harmony. They did not create light. They learned to prepare a place where light could rest. In the workshops where the Stellarator took form, air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. Sparks fell from welders' torches like captured stars, scattering before vanishing into shadow. Every piece was a puzzle of millimeters, each connection requiring care bordering on reverence. Technicians studied blueprints that seemed to twist in impossible directions, learning to read geometry as language. They built not from repetition but from adaptation, each component unique. To work on such a machine was to participate in something larger than labor, to join a conversation between human intention and cosmic law. The engineers often described their work as listening. The materials spoke through resistance, the equations spoke through correction. Every problem was a teacher, every obstacle a refinement of understanding. They learned that steel could be coaxed but never rushed, that superconducting wires demanded silence, that even the most precise measurements could change with the warmth of a single breath. Building the Stellarator required a kind of humility rare in industry, the willingness to yield to the requirements of perfection. Progress moved not at the pace of ambition, but at the pace of truth. Each section of the machine was assembled as though it were sacred. The coils, once cooled, glowed with frost, their surfaces smooth as glass. Bolts were tightened in sequences calculated to preserve exact balance. Every curve was inspected by laser, every surface polished until it reflected the faint gleam of the workshop lights. In the end, the pieces came together not as a factory product but as a symphony of craftsmanship. The Stellarator stood complete, a cathedral of precision, its beauty born from collective patience rather than singular genius. Yet for all its complexity, the engineers spoke of simplicity. They said that perfection comes when effort disappears, when the machine becomes a natural extension of its purpose. The Stellarator, in its final form, seemed inevitable, as though it had always been waiting beneath the laws of physics for someone to uncover it. The team that built it did not claim ownership. They saw themselves as witnesses to what the universe allowed. Their fingerprints remained, invisible but eternal, pressed into the curves of the machine's steel bones. When the first plasma glowed within the chamber, many of them stood in silence. The light was not loud or blinding. It was soft, steady, a color that felt alive. Some smiled, others wept quietly, all understood. Years of calculation, error, and repetition had condensed into a few seconds of perfect balance. In that moment the line between maker and made dissolved. They had not created power. They had discovered peace. The energy that filled the chamber belonged as much to them as to the stars, not in possession, but in kinship. These engineers of light rarely become famous, yet their work endures in every atom that fuses within the Stellarator's field. They are custodians of a promise, that knowledge, when shaped with patience and care, can serve rather than consume. The machine they built hums with their legacy, a melody of mathematics and devotion. It stands as proof that creation need not be explosive to be divine. Sometimes, the greatest achievements are born not from force, but from the quiet precision of hands that understand light. Nothing in the universe hurries, not truly. Stars are born from clouds of gas that take millions of years to gather, collapse, and ignite. Galaxies drift apart in slow dances that last longer than thought can measure. Even the atoms that compose our bodies were forged in suns that burned before Earth had form. The Stellarator belongs to that same lineage of patience. It is not a device of instant results, but of deliberate rhythm, a reminder that endurance, not urgency, shapes creation. When scientists first imagined holding fusion on Earth, they knew the journey would stretch across generations. The scale of their goal demanded time, as stars demand centuries to mature. They accepted that they might not see the conclusion, that their role was to begin, not to finish. This surrender to time became their greatest strength. Each experiment, each failure, each flicker of progress added a layer of understanding, just as each heartbeat of a star adds to its radiance. The Stellarator is not simply a machine. It is a conversation across decades, a flame carried carefully from hand to hand. Patience is written into its very design. The machine must be cooled for days before it awakens. The magnets must align with exquisite precision, and once active, they shift gently to balance the living plasma within. Every adjustment is slow and deliberate, measured not in seconds but in sequences, the choreography of trust between technology and time. To rush would mean collapse. To wait is to achieve harmony. In this way, the Stellarator mirrors the stars it emulates, brightness earned through stillness. The scientists who tend to it often speak of time differently now. They say that hours near the machine feel longer, stretched by concentration, yet gentler, filled with purpose. Their patience becomes a form of reverence. They work not to conquer time but to join its rhythm. When the plasma finally stabilizes and glows, they see the result of countless moments layered together, decisions, refinements, hesitations, all contributing to that single, luminous equilibrium. The light that fills the chamber is not just energy, it is the sum of waiting made visible. Patience has always been the hidden engine of progress. From the slow erosion that shapes mountains to the growth of forests that breathe civilizations into being, endurance sustains everything that lasts. The Stellarator embodies this principle in metal and magnetism. Its success depends on repetition, on returning to the same task until perfection becomes effortless. The stars teach the same lesson. They shine not because they rush, but because they remain, unwavering, constant, faithful to their own rhythm. In a world accustomed to immediacy, the Stellarator offers a quiet counterpoint. It shows that not all progress comes from acceleration. Some of the universe's greatest achievements arise from pause, from listening long enough to understand the forces at play. The patience that holds plasma in place is the same patience that holds galaxies in balance. Both require trust, in physics, in time, in the idea that order will emerge if we allow it. The scientists who nurture fusion understand this instinctively. They are not builders of machines, they are gardeners of light. When the Stellarator sleeps between experiments, its coils resting in frozen silence, it seems almost contemplative. The stillness is not emptiness but preparation, a gathering of potential waiting to bloom again. The patience of stars lives within it, folded into steel, sustained by faith in what will come. The light it produces may flicker only for moments now, but those moments are seeds. One day, perhaps centuries from now, fusion will burn continuously, cleanly, endlessly. The stars will look down and see their patience reflected back from Earth. And in that reflection lies the quiet truth of progress, that the universe rewards not haste, but harmony. The Stellarator teaches that waiting is not absence of action, it is the refinement of it. Just as stars learn to shine through the slow grace of time, humanity learns to create light by joining the same eternal rhythm. Long before the first stars burned, the universe was a sea of darkness and potential. Energy drifted without form, particles wandered without bond. Then, somewhere in that infinite quiet, fusion began. The first atoms united, and from that union came light, a flash that filled the void with direction and warmth. Every star, every planet, Every breath that would ever exist began in that instant of surrender between hydrogen and heat. The Stellarator, glowing softly within its chamber, carries the same echo of that first creation. Its light is not imitation but remembrance. Inside the machine, plasma twists and folds, as it once did in the early universe. The same physics apply. Temperature high enough to overcome separation, density precise enough to sustain reaction, confinement stable enough to nurture rather than destroy. Each time the Stellarator ignites, it reenacts the birth of stars on a scale that fits within human sight. What began as cosmic inevitability now becomes conscious recreation. The universe, through human hands, repeats its own genesis in miniature, an echo of the dawn contained within the span of a heartbeat. The resemblance is not only physical but philosophical. The same law that governed the first light governs the Stellarator, that unity creates radiance. Two atoms merge, releasing more energy than either possessed alone. The result is not reduction but expansion, not destruction but continuity. This principle, older than galaxies, lies at the center of all creation. From atoms to ecosystems to ideas, everything that endures follows the same rule. Harmony births strength. The Stellarator embodies that truth in every magnetic curve, each one a hymn to connection. Scientists who study fusion sometimes speak with reverence reserved for poets. They understand that what they observe is not merely reaction, but memory. The light emerging from the chamber has traveled this path before, billions of years ago, across unimaginable distances. It is the same radiance that sculpted the first stars, the same glow that forged every element within our bones. The energy we now summon was not invented. It was waiting, timeless, patient. Humanity has simply learned to call it by name. In a sense, the Stellarator is a bridge between what was and what will be. It links the beginning of time to the promise of the future. The energy released within its chamber may one day power entire worlds, but its meaning runs deeper than utility. It is a dialogue with origin, a reminder that creation is cyclical, not linear. The same fusion that birthed existence now becomes the key to sustaining it. The machine whispers across billions of years. Nothing truly new is made. Everything is transformed. To stand before it is to feel that lineage. The faint glow that touches the glass carries history in every photon. The color of the plasma echoes the spectrum of distant suns. Its motion repeats the choreography of galaxies still forming. Even the silence between its pulses resembles the quiet between cosmic expansions. Each test, each brief confinement of plasma, becomes a moment of communion with the forces that shaped everything we know. The Stellarator does not merely imitate the stars, it remembers them. What makes this echo profound is that it completes a circle. Life that arose from fusion has now returned to it, not by instinct, but by intention. The atoms that once drifted through space now build machines that hold their ancient flame. Humanity, the child of starlight, has learned to keep that light alive. The Stellarator glows, not as an act of dominance, but of recognition, the universe acknowledging itself through human curiosity. It is creation remembering its beginning, and in doing so, beginning again. As the plasma fades and the chamber cools, the echo lingers. The light may vanish, but its memory remains, reflected in the eyes of those who watched. In that memory, time folds inward, connecting the birth of everything to the quiet of this single moment. The first light still shines, it has only changed hands. Every age has its symbol of hope. For some it was the fire of discovery, for others the wheel, the compass, the engine. In this age, hope burns quietly inside the Stellarator, not in flames or explosions, but in a light that asks for nothing and gives without smoke or sorrow. The future that unfolds from it is written not in conquest, but in continuity. It is the vision of a world powered by understanding rather than exhaustion, where energy flows as gently as breath, and progress no longer demands sacrifice from the earth that sustains it. Fusion promises more than abundance, it promises peace. If realized, it could dissolve many of the boundaries that divide civilization, the fight for fuel, the fear of scarcity, the pollution that stains air and sea. Energy would cease to be a weapon or a privilege. It would become a right as natural as sunlight. In this sense, the Stellarator is not only a reactor, but a philosophy, a physical expression of the belief that power can coexist with harmony. Its coils are more than metal, they are the architecture of a new moral order. The road to that future, however, remains long. Fusion demands precision, patience, and integrity. It cannot be rushed by politics or pride. Its development depends on collaboration across nations, generations, and disciplines. The light that glows within the chamber belongs to no single flag or frontier. It speaks in a universal language, one understood equally in every corner of the world. Scientists who work on the Stellarator often say that its light feels borderless, the first truly global flame, born from cooperation rather than competition. Technology alone cannot guarantee the future it suggests. The same energy that can heal can also be squandered. The challenge will not be how to build reactors, but how to build responsibility. Fusion asks humanity to mature, to align ethics with capability. It offers not domination over nature, but partnership with it. The energy it provides is pure. The choices that guide it must be equally so. The Stellarator's gentle hum becomes a reminder that strength without restraint is noise, while balance creates music. The most profound change fusion may bring is psychological. For centuries, the human story has been written in cycles of scarcity, of taking, depleting, rebuilding. Fusion rewrites that narrative into one of renewal. When energy is drawn from harmony, not hunger, progress becomes sustainable in both matter and mind. Cities could glow without smoke, machines could hum without fear of depletion. Even imagination could expand, freed from the limitations of cost and consequence. The universe itself would become both classroom and companion. In that vision, light becomes a teacher again. It reminds us that power and peace are not opposites, but phases of the same motion. The Stellarator's glow offers a glimpse of how civilization might live within its means while expanding beyond its boundaries. The same principle that holds plasma in equilibrium could hold society in balance. Guided motion, gentle constraint, collective purpose. Just as the magnetic fields shape the plasma without touching it, wisdom can guide humanity without controlling it. The art of the future will be to sustain flow without chaos. When the lights of the laboratory fade and the machine cools, what remains is not just potential energy, but the memory of what cooperation can achieve. The Stellarator stands as both promise and mirror. Promise of what energy can become, and mirror of what humanity must become to deserve it. Its story is not merely about technology, but about evolution, from fire to fusion, from consumption to comprehension. The future it points toward is already written in light. All that remains is for humanity to read it carefully. All things that endure move in circles. Planets orbit their suns, seasons return in sequence, and even thought loops back to its beginnings, finding meaning in repetition. The Stellarator is no different. Its coils trace perfect curves, guiding plasma through endless motion, returning it always to where it began, energy without escape, motion without waste. It is a circle not of confinement but of completion. Within that motion lies the oldest truth the universe knows. Nothing is ever lost, only transformed. The circle is the universe's handwriting. Every galaxy, every atom, every pulse of the human heart writes its signature in roundness. The Stellarator joins that lineage, its design echoing the same geometry that governs the orbits of worlds. The plasma within it moves in harmony with the cosmos, following invisible paths of balance and return. Each turn of its light is a reminder that progress does not mean leaving origins behind. It means deepening them. The circle holds both past and future, joining them through rhythm instead of distance. To understand the Stellarator is to see that energy itself is cyclical. What burns in the stars becomes the warmth of worlds, the life of oceans, the spark within thought. When that energy fades, it returns to form again, a perpetual dance of transformation. Fusion embodies this continuity with perfect humility. It takes the most common element in existence, hydrogen, and turns it into helium, releasing light along the way. That light travels across eons, reaching eyes that can perceive it, minds that can reflect upon it. The circle completes itself when knowledge meets origin. In many ways, the Stellarator is humanity's own circle of light. We were born from fusion, and now we return to it, not by accident, but by intention. The same energy that forged our atoms now answers to our curiosity. In doing so, the circle closes, yet expands. It shows that intelligence is not separate from nature but one of its expressions. By learning to sustain the same process that gave us life, we become participants in the universe's own act of renewal. The machine does not mimic creation, it collaborates with it. The scientists who stand before its glow sometimes describe a strange sensation, that of being both observer and participant. The light reflects in their eyes, and for a moment, the distinction between self and source dissolves. They realize that the energy they study is the same energy that animates them. The circle, once external, becomes internal. The plasma within the machine and the awareness within the mind follow the same principle: motion sustained by balance, existence sustained by harmony. To grasp this is to feel connected, not only to the machine, but to everything it represents. The circle of light extends beyond the laboratory. It touches the moral dimension of progress, the realization that what we give returns, that care and destruction echo equally through the same loop of cause and effect. The Stellarator shows how to create power that gives back rather than depletes, how to innovate without undoing. Its glow becomes metaphor for every act that sustains rather than consumes. The circle, whether in energy or ethics, is the shape of wisdom. When the plasma fades and the coils cool, the circle remains. The energy that once glowed within the chamber disperses into air, into heat, into thought. Some of it travels as light, some as memory, some as inspiration, but none of it is lost. It continues, invisible, inevitable, part of a continuum that began at creation and will end only when light itself sleeps. The Stellarator's circle endures as symbol and reminder that everything we touch, build, and become eventually returns to us. And if we choose to move in harmony with that return, then the circle will not merely close, it will shine forever. When all other lights fade, one remains. It burns not in lamps or stars alone, but in the quiet rhythm of existence itself, the pulse that links matter to meaning. The Stellarator, now resting in silence, holds that pulse still. Its chamber no longer glows, yet the memory of radiance lingers in every curve of its frame. The machine sleeps, but its purpose does not. Within its stillness lies a promise as vast as the sky, that light, once born, never truly goes dark. Even in the absence of plasma, the coils retain a whisper of what they have held. The frozen metal remembers warmth, the sensors remember motion. The engineers and scientists who walk its halls know this feeling. The quiet after creation, when the noise of progress gives way to reflection. They understand that the true achievement is not the spark itself, but the space that allows it to exist. The Stellarator's beauty lies in its balance between potential and rest, between energy alive and energy waiting. It is a star that breathes in intervals, teaching patience through its very design. Beyond the laboratory walls, night stretches wide. The same stars that inspired fusion shimmer above, each one performing the same act the Stellarator now rehearses in miniature. Light moves endlessly across the dark, carrying the story of every sun, every ignition, every beginning. Somewhere, millions of years from now, photons born in this chamber may still be traveling, brushing past planets, reflecting from oceans, entering eyes that do not yet exist. In that way, even the briefest glow becomes infinite. The light that never sleeps is not physical alone. It exists in thought, in curiosity, in the human desire to understand. The fusion we chase is not merely of atoms, but of wonder and will. The joining of imagination with reality. Each experiment, each discovery extends that flame. Knowledge itself behaves like light. Once shared, it cannot be contained. Once known, it cannot be undone. The Stellarator stands as proof that the universe invites us to continue its work, to turn mystery into meaning without extinguishing either. There is serenity in that calling. Humanity's restless search for energy, for purpose, for permanence, has always been a search for light. Yet the answer was never beyond us. It has always been within. The same principles that stabilize plasma, patience, precision, harmony, also sustain the mind that seeks to hold it. To watch the stellarator at rest is to realize that illumination does not depend on brightness, but on awareness. Even darkness is only light we have not yet understood. One day, perhaps, the stellarator will no longer be unique. Its descendants will hum quietly across the world, bringing warmth to cities and calm to seas. Children will grow up beneath skies unscarred by smoke, their nights lit by stars that no longer compete with human fire but complement it. And in that future, the memory of these first machines will remain, the moment when humankind chose cooperation over consumption, understanding over haste, and found infinity reflected in a single spark. The light that never sleeps belongs to everyone. It connects galaxies and hearts, equations and dreams. It burns wherever curiosity is kind, wherever creation is gentle, wherever power serves peace. The stellarator is its vessel for now, but the light itself is older than machines and younger than tomorrow. It will move on, as light always does, transforming, reflecting, beginning again. And as you rest, that same light moves quietly through you. It breathes in your chest, flickers behind your eyes, warms the silence around you. The stars outside turn slowly, repeating their endless fusion in the dark. Energy continues its eternal conversation, softly, endlessly, peacefully. We, from Sleepy Stories, wish you a good night.